Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are going to continue with our mixed terminology, if I may, and that is al-Asah al-Mansus in al-Minhaj, and then afterwards we'll go through al-Sahih al-Mansus inshallah ta'ala. So the next one we have is in Qasm Sadaqat. He says ويعطى الفقير والمسكين كفاية سنة. قلت الأصح المنصوص وقول الجمهور كفاية العمر الغالب فيشتري به عقارا يستغله والله أعلم. So we had al-Rafi'i. He mentioned that the faqir and the miskin, they get what would be suffice for 1 year. He responds and says no, al-Asah al-Mansus, and the majority said Kifayatul Umr al-Ghalib, or Kifayat al-Umr al-Ghalib, meaning what would be suffice for the rest of their normal lives. We're not going to get into the mas'ala, as we usually do not. The point that we're trying to make here is to prove that there's awjuh and that there is nas. So when we look at the awjuh of this mas'ala, we can find out and see that there are indeed awjuh. The first wajh says the faqir and the miskin get would be suffice for 1 year. This was said by many of the Khurasanis, by al-Baghawi, by al-Ghazali, Hujjat al-Islam, by Ibn al-Qas, and others. So those scholars that argued that when he said al-Asah al-Mansus, he could not have meant that there's an actual wajh. Well, this is another example that proves that there is a wajh. And that means that when he said al-Asah, he meant that in the terminology that has to do with the awjuh, as we have been mentioning, right? The second wajh that says Kifayat al-Umr, it is what all of the Iraqis have stated, and a decent portion of the Khurasanis have stated as well. But funny enough, the majority of them, almost I would say 90%, didn't mention anything about there being a nas. However, it was determined that there is indeed a nas. Jameel. So it becomes al-Asah because of the awjuh, and the mansus because there is a nas. Which also alerts us to another fact that can show that Imam Nawawi meant to do this, and he specified this in the introduction. And this is a good example for that. He says in the introduction, when he mentions a nas, or the term nas, it's because there is wajhun da'if aw qawlun mukharraj. So just by him saying in the introduction itself that he's using nas because there is a wajh, so he's trying to tell you, FYI, there exists awjuh in this mas'ala as well. That's why he used nas. It actually shows that the argument presented by these scholars that went with that, when he brings both the terminology of the awjuh and the terminology of the aqwal and the nusus in the same sense, that he cannot mean the mustalah of the awjuh there, because that would be a contradiction. That's not necessarily accurate, in the sense that Nawawi himself said what he means by it, and he mentions wajh. Okay. Now again, I'm not claiming it's my word versus those scholars. No, there's also other scholars. There's a major Indian scholar who has a ta'liq on Sharh al-Mahalli who said the same thing. Many contemporary scholars agree and say the same thing as well. Realistically, the only ones that differed would be the great scholar Al-Imam al-Qalyubi and Shabram al-Lasi, and very, very, very few others that agreed with them. While I can't say everyone else, because not everyone else really commented on it, which is odd, but there's also another group that says what we're saying as well. So these are scholars versus scholars. We're just pointing out that, one, what he meant by it. Two, it's technically in the introduction somewhat, maybe not that obvious, but it's there nevertheless. Keep that in mind.